A $500 drone just destroyed a $1.2 billion Russian air defense system, and the men who built it were working out of a basement. No factory, no government lab, just soldering irons, lamplight, and the quiet determination of people who refuse to lose. If you think that's remarkable, wait until you hear what they're building next, because it's about to change the rules of warfare for every military on Earth, and there's one country that can't do a single thing to stop it. Before we go any further, if you follow military technology and global defense strategy, hit subscribe right now. We break this down daily, and what's happening in Ukraine right now is moving fast. Let's start with the numbers, because they're almost impossible to believe. In 2022, Ukraine produced somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 drones total. By 2024, that number had exploded to 2 million. By 2025, an estimated 4.5 million, a 900-fold increase in just 3 years. That's not a defense industry. That's a revolution. But hidden inside that miracle was a time bomb. Nearly every single one of those drones was built from components sourced in China. And China, for all its public claims of neutrality, holds a comprehensive strategic partnership with Russia, not Ukraine. So here's the question that the entire Western defense world has been quietly dreading. What happens when China decides to flip the switch? It already did. In June 2023, Beijing moved to restrict exports of long-range drones over 15 pounds to both Ukraine and Russia. On paper, that sounds balanced. In reality, China continued supplying Russia with semiconductors, drone engines, and dual-use technologies under its so-called no-limits partnership with Moscow. Ukraine got the restrictions. Russia got the back door. Then on September 1st, 2024, China went further, imposing sweeping export bans on drone components including flight controllers, carbon frames, motors, radio modules, and navigation cameras. For Ukraine's drone production lines, this was like pulling the oxygen from the room. Ukrainian drone manufacturer Alexei Grebin, CEO of Motor G, now the country's largest domestic electric motor producer, put it bluntly. Before the bans, there were no domestic producers of drone components. Nobody was even thinking about it. That's how completely Ukraine had outsourced its wartime lifeline to a country aligned with its enemy. And now you might be wondering, surely Europe or the US stepped in to fill the gap. Here's where the story gets genuinely alarming. Stay with us on this one, because this next part affects far more than just Ukraine. When the Chinese bans hit, Ukraine immediately turned to its US and European partners for replacement components. What they found was devastating. Europe's drone component suppliers, it turned out, were not manufacturers at all. They were middlemen, resellers of Chinese goods with European branding slapped on top. The components simply weren't available, and when they could be found, prices had tripled. Grebin said it plainly. When it comes to drone motors, the EU has none. There are brands, but they're made in China. Representatives from 3 European countries had expressed interest in localizing motor production. Not one had even reached the planning stage as of August 2025. So Ukraine did something that the entire Western defense establishment had failed to do. It started making its own. Motor G went from prototype to mass production in under 2 years. By the end of 2025, it was producing close to 100,000 motors per month, mostly for FPV attack drones and the larger fiber optic guided systems now reshaping the front line. Ukrainian drone manufacturer Hasta, whose name means spear, began producing its own fiber optic cable spools and casings using locally reconfigured lathes. Founder Andrei, identified only by his first name for security reasons, confirmed that Ukrainian production is now expanding to cover thermal vision systems, controllers, motors, and frames. Cameras are next, and then there are the circuit boards, the command nervous system of every FPV drone, managing flight stabilization, power distribution, high-speed data processing, gyroscope and accelerometer integration. These were almost entirely Chinese-sourced until recently. Now they're being assembled in Ukrainian basements. And the quality is high enough that one of the companies producing them was selected for the Pentagon's drone domination program, among just 11 companies worldwide chosen from a competitive gauntlet held in February 2026. Ukrainian Defense Drones Tech Corporation made the final cut. 8 U.S. manufacturers made it, 2 UK companies made it, 1 Ukrainian basement operation made it. The Pentagon is now in line to place approximately $150 million in delivery orders for 30,000 one-way attack drones. Let that sink in. But here's the deeper story. And this is the part that should wake up every defense minister in the Western world. Ukraine's dependency on Chinese components was never unique to Ukraine. It was simply the first country forced to confront it under fire. China's dominance of the global drone component market is so complete that the same vulnerability exists inside every Western military supply chain. In October 2024, China halted drone battery sales to Skydio, the largest commercial drone manufacturer in the United States, over the company's sale of drones to Taiwan. Skydio was forced to ration batteries until spring 2025. U.S.-made drones available to Ukraine dried up as a result. And it's not just drones. Across 1,280 U.S. weapon systems, components in 860 of them rely on materials controlled by Beijing. That includes the F-35 fighter jet, the Virginia-class submarine, precision-guided missiles. China's new export licensing controls introduced in 2025, requiring licenses for any equipment containing even trace amounts of Chinese origin rare earths, have sent prices for gallium and related materials spiking and thrown defense contractor supply chains into chaos. A senior official at the Pentagon's Defense Innovation Unit summarized it without softening the language. China could shut the drone industry down globally for a year. This is a national security issue, not just for the United States, but for the entire collective West. To make things worse, Iran's ongoing blockade of the Strait of Hormuz has sent oil prices surging from around $65 to roughly $100 per barrel, triggering inflation and disrupting supply chains for aluminum and other materials critical to defense manufacturing. The walls are closing in from multiple directions simultaneously, which makes what Ukraine has already accomplished even more extraordinary. By the end of 2024, nearly all of Ukraine's drones were built from Chinese components. By end of 2025, that figure had dropped to approximately 38%, a shift achieved in under 12 months through sheer necessity and relentless domestic innovation. Ukrainian Defense Drones, founded by Ignat Buyakin, started in 2023 with 100% Chinese components. Within a year, carbon frames and antennas were being made domestically. The company now produces up to 15,000 antennas per day. By 2025, flight controllers, speed governors, radio modems, and video transmission systems had all been brought in-house. The only remaining external component is cameras, and those are being sourced from a Ukrainian company that builds them from European parts. As Ukraine's deputy head of the presidential office, Colonel Pablo Palisa, stated, "If we import, it means dependence. And any dependence means a weaker position. Ukraine currently produces up to 200,000 FPV drones per month. Its defense minister says the country needs 400,000 per month to match Russian production. Russia is estimated to be producing around 19,000 FPV drones per day. The arms race is not slowing down, it is accelerating. And Ukraine's ability to sustain and scale that race without a Chinese supply chain is now a strategic asset that even the U.S. doesn't yet possess." As Stacey Pettyjohn, director of the defense program at CNAS, admitted on record, the U.S. is dangerously far behind. Every single drone produced in America is inferior in quality and costs more than a comparable DJI drone. The industrial base to change that doesn't exist yet. Ukraine's does. According to Major Robert Brody, commander of Ukraine's unmanned systems forces, more than 90% of Russian casualties are now being inflicted by Ukrainian drones. These $500 weapons have destroyed S-400 Triumph air defense systems worth $1.2 billion each, T-90M tanks worth $4.5 million, A-50 mainstay radar aircraft worth $300 million, Tu-22M3 strategic bombers worth $100 million, a $500 circuit board, a $1 billion wreck. That cost-to-kill ratio has shattered every conventional assumption about how wars are won. And while Vladimir Putin watches from Moscow, there is genuinely nothing he can do to stop it. Ukraine's domestic drone sovereignty is building faster than Russia can respond. Russia's own production lines are just as dependent on Chinese components as everyone else's, if not more so. Putin's strategic partnership with Beijing provides a temporary buffer. But if that arrangement ever fractures, Russia's drone army faces the same cliff Ukraine already climbed down from, except Ukraine already built the ladder back up, and Russia hasn't started looking for one. That's what $500 and a soldering iron in a Ukrainian basement looks like when survival is the only option. If you want to understand where this war goes next and what it means for global military strategy, make sure you're subscribed. We analyze this daily, not weekly. Every development, every shift, every strategic breakthrough, you'll be the first to know. And if this script opened your eyes, share it with someone who needs to see it.